news, gossips, fashion, and the latest gadgets in the marketplace of the people. The role of a media has to be one-way trading and marketing of products and prejudices. It gives geographical knowledge about how people divided. The media claim to be governed by righteousness and equity for the common man to the rich. Society is influenced by media in so many ways. It is the media for the masses that helps them to get information about a lot of things and also form opinion and make a judgment regarding various issues. It is the media which keeps pupils updated and informed about what is happening around them and the world that everyone draws something from it. Media is considered as mirror of the modern society. In fact, it is the media which shapes our lives. It takes discipline not to let social media steal your time. Media has had a bad effect on a generation, mainly because youth is strongly influenced by media. Teenagers and children are intended to follow their people who are recognized and follow what they do to get noticed. Sometimes they focus bad part of a media and influence to do it. However, many did the crime by following media blindly. Whoever controls the media controls the mind. The media affects people's perspective. Too much intervention of media is everything is a matter of concern. Media can be considered as watchdog of political democracy. In media world, it had a positive and negative sides because as it had an influence over generations from ages, some fake news make a special impact over the society to make crimes and make people react fast to the issue without thinking once. In this social media like Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp plays a major role. Recently in India, one fake news made village people kill one innocent person and injured friends of that person. Fake news is a big thing in the field of social media journalism. Fake news can be as simple as has spread misinformation or as dangerous as displaying hateful propaganda. In today's world, the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent, and that's the power because they control the minds of the masses. So it is in the hands of the people to take control of their minds and decide what is correct. And to discuss this very, very important topic, that is, does media serve society? We have a very elite, very, you can say, knowledgeable authority and expert in this field. And I would like to invite my first panelist. He is Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal is the former Professor of Marketing, Innovation and Management, IIM Lucknow, XLRI Jamshedpur, and California State University, USA. He is President of Indo-Gulf Management Association. He is US Fulbright Fellow Boston, EFMD Fellow Paris, and British Council Fellow London. In 2019, he was ranked among the 251 most fabulous global education leaders. Welcome, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal on our show. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, as you know very well, that media is having lots of impact on the society, and especially for last 1.5 years when we were all almost in lockdown situation, nothing to do except we have to rely on media, whatsoever news, whatsoever entertainment, whatsoever things we are watching on television or the social media or reading the newspaper. Now, my question to you is very simple, means but the topic is, does media serve society? Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. Please unmute. Please unmute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goel, for such a rich commentary and such a rich start to all of us in terms of sharing our perhaps 2 cents here or there to what you have so eloquently mentioned, the role of media in society, and to answer the question, does media serve society? In my example is LinkedIn, example is social media that we have, where the consumers are not playing the role of consumers, but they are also playing the role of co-producers of that particular content, of that particular information. And somehow the world that we are living, whether it is Wikipedia or whether it is any other medium, consumers are also producing media. So to that extent, the society is also producing media rather than media is affecting the society. Come what may, whatever may be the things, we need to be very, very clear that what media we are talking about. For want of better way, and being a suffering from the limitation of being a professor, I can say that the media is can be very easily remembered as a TRP, which will be the like we call it in television, the total rating points. Here it will be television, radio, press. Television, radio, press. Now later on, this TRP was, which is also a kind of, you could say classic media, mass media. It joined by one more media, and that is outdoor media. So it became to that extent, I would say again, to spin the thing a little bit differently, we can call it is a port, and which is a press, outdoor media, radio and television, port. Now this port has become a sport, where we use the word S for social media. So this media now has become, to my mind, truly a sport, because we do not know many times that what we are listening to, what we are saying, is really, really credible or not. Or is it just for this? And as you very correctly said, fake news and all those things. Sometimes this fake news is also another name for the news I don't like it. So it is not necessarily a fake. It is just that I don't like it. So I will call it a fake news, even though it is a truthful news, or the news which will come out later as truthful news. So fact of the matter here is that we need to be very careful about the media we are talking about. So traditional media, to my mind, except this S port, I would still say that since it is controlled by the giver in terms of credibility and contents, probably the believability, the credibility was much, much more. But the moment this sport has become sport, the credibility has gone down very, very big time. And in fact, if you look into the longitudinal studies are those studies which are asking the same question after a few years and comparing the questions at 2 points of time, that is longitudinal studies. They identified that the credibility of media, and especially after the invention of the social media, is very, very drastically on decline. And why? Because the traditional media are also playing probably the same game, or if not fully the same game, similar game that social media is, where the rush to reach has become much, much more than perhaps the conservatism in terms of checking the veracity, checking the source, checking whether each and every word really, really stands to the truth or not. And that has become because of the social media. So the very fact that the social media now is in our midst as a very, very big deal, probably the question, does media serve society, may have to be changed very quickly into another question. And that particular question is that how much it serves rather than does it serve or not. That question now is already or fully answered for that. So look into the social media a little bit. That number one, as I mentioned to you, that that the people have become co-producers, but it also because the people have become owner of several platforms, several devices, and several ways in which they are consuming as well as they are delivering and also sharing in different ways. The same information that we have, whether it is WhatsApp or whether it is LinkedIn or whether it is Facebook or any other. I mean, the Facebook now is having 1/4 of the human population on it, or maybe more than that. We are, close to 1.5 billion people, bigger than India, bigger than China, is Facebook as a nation. So clearly, we are talking about very large number of people involved. Let me put a little bit more attention to Arab world, where I'm coming from, because this is a very, very different world. This is both conservative, rich, and it is also evolving a lot, much more evolving. And perhaps, we can say that it could be the US of 70s or 80s, where dreams are made of and where dreams are realized by people if they are hardworking and if they have the kind of vision that is required. Social media or media in the Arab world is mostly electronic, mostly electronic. It is even when it is outdoor, it is more electronic. So until it is seen, I always remember with a lot of kind of twist in logic that when Mrs. Gandhi unfortunately was killed, Rajiv Gandhi was on the plane in Calcutta, or he was somewhere there at that time. And somebody said that, sir, ma'am has been felled by, the security guards. She said, no, 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 no. Please tune in to BBC. I want to see the verification of the news in BBC. Today, I'm sorry, he perhaps nobody will ask that question. Today, they will say, let's look at, the LinkedIn or Facebook or WhatsApp or any other thing. Because BBC itself now has become perhaps a part of the media that has to be consumed, produced and consumed instantly from that point of view, because they are also giving fast news, they are also giving rapid news. So to conclude, the point which I would like to say here is that if you are in the Arab world, probably social media is extremely important, because 9 out of 10 people are getting their news from the electronic media. One last point, and then this is where perhaps I will stop, and I would like to listen to my esteemed panel. In marketing, we have a very, very celebrated model of effect of media on consumers, which is called hierarchy of effects, or AIDA model, AIDA. Each and every letter of this AIDA talks about the function of media to that particular consumer. The first A is awareness, creating awareness. The second one is I, which is creating interest into that particular brand, that particular product, that particular message. And D is heightening that particular interest to the level of desire. So that's why it is called, D. And final thing is again A, which means action. If we take this particular AIDA into our electoral process, the democratic process of any other issue that we are dealing with, which we saw in the case of Jasmine revolution in the Arab world, when Google employee started things which perhaps couldn't be controlled later, even though they started with a very small thing in Tunisia. But all those particular things are showing that media also has, society also has a similar relationship of AIDA, that awareness, interest, desire, and action. All those 4 things are being enveloped, but obviously the context is different. So Mr. Goel, thank you very much for allowing us this opportunity to at least think about the effect of media on society, or effect of society on media, because I believe both are feeding to each other. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, for giving his views on the topic, does media serve society? I would just like to highlight few points which he has raised. He mentioned that, yes, according to him, media serves the society. He says whether society is serving the media or not, that is a different thing. He also, according to him, that today the media is basically a selective choice. So if suppose somebody wants to see a particular, he belongs to a particular philosophy or thoughts, he would like to see only those things which are giving those thoughts or the philosophy, but he doesn't want to see the other. So to say that it is impacting or doing some discredit is not correct, because the people are selectively seeing what they want to see. He also mentioned that there are research says that the media is only impacting the elite, or only the elite people are consuming the. But Other study says, no, the masses are consuming millet or they are very busy in their time schedule. So how come they can this thing? One very important point which he has raised is, according to him, the society or the people are the co-producers of the media. And he has given the examples of Twitter, Wikipedia, etc. Although Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, nowadays it's a hot topic in India because of the Twitter, whether the contents which has been produced or co-produced by the people are being termed for them or for the Twitter. So lots of legalities are going on. Anyway, we are not going in that, but there is a credibility issue of the Twitter or the society, as you have mentioned. Both things we have to see what the outcome will come. And then he mentioned about how the credibility of the media has gone down, and he has mentioned about the port, and then he says the port has entered the press, the outdoor media, the radio, television port. When the social media entered, then became sport, and then the credibility gone down. So according to him, the social media has played a havoc as far as the media consumption is concerned. But he says sometimes the social media also played a very, very positive role. So basically, according to Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, the media is playing a very balanced role. It all depends on the society or the individual, how they consume the media, how they perceive the media. And he has also mentioned that the Facebook is today having 1.5 billion viewers or the consumers or the clients. Now, he says they are more than the India or the China population. So when this is the situation, we cannot neglect the force like Facebook. And he also mentioned how the BBC was very much credible when Mrs. Gandhi was assassinated. But today the condition has changed, and people would like to verify from the social media whether the news is correct or the fake. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal. Definitely, when I will come next, I will ask you some question about what you have mentioned. Now, I would like to invite my next guest, and he is Mr. Deepak Kaul. Mr. Deepak Kaul is the former managing director of Coca-Cola Bottling UAE and Oman, a veteran of 35 years across different consumer companies like Nestle, J&J, Kellogg's, and Coca-Cola. Mr. Deepak Kaul, you have heard what Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal has mentioned. He has given, initially he says media is serving the society, but gradually during his talks, he has become quite mild, and he has given a balanced view. So in nutshell, although he is lenient towards the media, but he is also giving the negative points of the media, means whether they are serving the society or not. According to him, the society has to see whether they are serving the media or not. We would like to know from you your views. Does media serve society? Mr. Deepak Kaul, please.
Good morning, Mr. Goel, and good morning to all the viewers. It's always very challenging to speak on a topic after Dr. Agarwal, because with his depth and width of knowledge, he has practically covered all the points that can be covered. But so I will try to find out space for myself from what he has spoken and maybe add some more value to what Dr. Agarwal has already said in his opening remarks. I think media is only channel. We need to really differentiate between the channel, the technology, and the content that rides on that channel. Media per se is only a channel that takes message from point A to point B. In olden days, we had, as Dr. Agarwal said, we had TV, we had radio. I mean, these were the two dominant channels of communication, which then over the years evolved, and today we have net. So I don't think media is an issue. It is the content that rides on that media, which becomes an issue today. And on top of that, the technology that delivers that content to the people. So it is media. I mean, I was reading somewhere, and as Mr. Goel, you also mentioned that whosoever controls media controls the mind. So it is the information that rides on the media. It's the information that rides on the technology and the way it gets delivered today. I mean, I was reading somewhere that about in 2010, there were about 70 million smartphones in India. Today, we have 700 million smartphones. And by 2025, we'll have almost 1 billion smartphones. So I don't think we can shy away from the fact that there is a lot of accessibility of the information that's going to happen in future. And the technology is only going to make it faster and faster. So to come back to the topic, that media per se is a channel, is a content which either adds value or creates problem for the listener or the person who's receiving that information. Media has had multiple effects. I'll go in the recent past when Corona hit us globally. We had the head of Brazilian government behaving in a certain way. We had head of American government behaving in a certain way. And then we had South Korea, Taiwan, Japan behaving in a certain way. So what happens is that we form images of our heroes, and when they start speaking, we, without filtering that information, start accepting that as a gospel truth. So the problem is that, do we, as the receiver of that information, are we knowledgeable enough? Are we matured enough to filter that information and also look at multiple sources of information to then take an educated decision? Is this the right thing or it's not the right thing? I think somewhere in the speed of information, the way it gets delivered, it's too much information, too fast, and too easily accessible, which really hampers our own internal knowledge of filtering the right from the wrong. So the Brazilian head says when COVID came that, listen, it's nothing, forget about it, don't worry, no need to wear mask. He went around hugging people. Population followed that. Whereas you expect population to put filters and see, hey, is this the right way to behave? Similarly, President Trump went on and made fun of the COVID. And then we know what happened after that. Even today, after everything but at the same time, technology also helped by giving examples of country like Korea, country like Japan, Taiwan, that how they control this. So it has a positive message. It has a negative message. It depends on the person who is receiving the message and his or her intelligence to filter that message and then try to follow what is the right way to do things or what is the wrong way to do things. I mean, media, and again, going back to the last 1.5 years of lockdown, see the way media took the role of a teacher. All the schools were closed. The education was being conducted online. And so a lot of information rests on media. You don't have to be part of a good university to access a good reading material today. There's not a lot of knowledge on the media. There's a lot of entertainment on the media, the right type and the wrong type, as we all know. There's a lot of e-commerce that happens through the media channels. So there are a lot of positivity that comes from media. But at the same time, there's a lot of negativity that also comes from the media. So I think this problem will continue as long as, and it's only going to get worse from here. So I don't think we should really be trying to restrict the technology or the content that rides on the technology. We need to start making people more educated. We need to start making people more aware, so they are able to take a right decision and then take the right information that comes to them through these channels. So I think it has a very critical role to play, media. It has had huge positive impact on the society, and it will continue to have positive impact on the society. Does it have a negative impact on the society? Absolutely. It also has a negative impact. We have become less tolerant today. I mean, you go to Facebook, you go to WhatsApp, we only want to be part of the group which has the same opinion or same thought process as we have, which means that as we grow up, our tolerance to a belief which is not in line with what I believe is reducing significantly. We have lost the sense of appreciating difference of opinion, which means we are becoming less patient. We react more violently because we want to deal only with the people who have the same mindset. So what happens to these kids when they grow up in future? They do not accept a difference of opinion, which means that you cannot have a logical dialogue and a conversation to reach to a decision which is the well thought of decisions. So it is polarizing people into different buckets, different channels, which is not good for society. So I think the big damage that media is doing today, it is polarizing opinion. And also, I mean, we have our friends from media houses. I'm sorry to say, even media houses today are not communicating news, they're communicating opinions. You know, they also have lost credibility because Fox News was aligning with one party and CNN aligns with another party. In India, NDTV aligns with one party and Z News aligns with another party. So that itself creates a lot of division within the society. So I think the whole solution starts from the media owners. They need not be communicating their opinion. They should be communicating the news. Today, when you see a debate conductor, he doesn't conduct a debate. He's throwing his or her opinion on the panel. So I think media has to become far more responsible because a lot of people still in India watch TV, and Hindi language TV is far more, has a much bigger penetration. But as the media owners start looking at their P&Ls and balance sheets, they lose the sight that the role that they need to play, they are somewhere deviating from that role. So I think the problem starts from the media owners. They need to act far more responsibly. Then the people who receive the content really have to have the maturity to understand what is right and what is not right, and not go by the single source and try to get educated from multiple sources and then take a decision. So media has a huge impact on our society. It will continue to have huge effect on our society. Technology is going to make it even more and more difficult to control it. So there's no point trying to control it. It's not going to get controlled. It is the various stakeholders in this channel of communication that they need to play a far more critical and responsible role. And at the same time, as the education level increases, I'm expecting and I'm hoping that the recipient of the information will have the maturity to then filter the right from the wrong and maybe then take the right decision in future. It's like a nuclear technology. You can use it to build power and generate electricity, but if it goes into the wrong hands, it can create havoc. So I think it's a great tool. It's a great way forward to build the society, to spread the knowledge, to improve the learning for individuals. So it is serving in a lot of positive way, but it also has an underbelly, which creating a separate society, which is creating pockets between people. I mean, you go to any home today, you know, you have father sitting with a mobile phone, son sitting with a mobile phone, mother, daughter, they're in the same room, but they're not connected. So what is this doing? I mean, it is also making us far less socializing entity today. We don't even talk to each other. We communicate with each other through electronic media. So it is dividing the society. It's creating different opinion groups. It's making us less social, less interconnected with each other on a social level. So there are the negatives of that, but there are huge positives that come from not the media, but the content on the media. So debate should not be, is it serving the society? Of course it is serving the society. I would like a debate to be on how do we prevent it from having a negative impact on the society? Because the positive side of the media is so big, so huge that there's no point controlling it. But the negativity also that comes along with the media is what we need to debate, that what can we do as individuals, media owners, government, policymakers, to make sure that we minimize, we cannot remove it completely. How do we minimize the impact of negative impact of media on the general population? People who are less educated, people who are still in a formative stage of their life, the teenagers, the youngsters, how do we make sure that the right information filters to them till they come to a level of maturity where they know what is right and what is not right? So to say in the nutshell, it's a great tool, it's a great technology, it's a great channel, and it's only going to get bigger and wider in approach. So I think it is serving to the society the right way. but there is also an underbelly, which we need to think again. How do we manage that part of it? That's my piece on this. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deepak Kaul, for giving your views. And Mr. Deepak Kaul has also mentioned that the media is serving the society, but there is underbelly in this, and there are some reservations. But I would like to highlight what he has mentioned, few of them. One, he says that the media is only a channel to deliver the contents. So media's role is only to pass on the information which they are receiving to the consumer. Now it all depends how you take it. But he has also mentioned how the role models and the leaders have played a havoc during the COVID time. And he has mentioned about the Brazilian president as well as President Trump, how because of their ignorance or they are purposely, they have shown that the COVID has nothing to do, and they are hugging each other, not wearing the mask, has created a problem in Brazil as well as in USA. Although in India, although he has not mentioned, but in India, initially, we were reacted very nicely, and our honorable Prime Minister has put a Janta lockdown, and then the lockdown in timely. But in the second wave, same thing has happened. What has we have seen in Brazil and in USA, that the leaders, irrespective of the parties, were busy in election without wearing masks. So people have followed. We were busy in organizing Kumbh Mela. Lakhs and lakhs people were taking dip in the Ganges. So there the media was showing. Whether media has taking a proper work responsibility or not, when I will come to the next round, definitely I will ask. But what Mr. Kaul has mentioned is that we must filter the information, or the media should filter the information, then pass on. Or if you are getting the information, you must also see what information you should take and what should not take. But he has also mentioned the number of mobile phones which are going to touch 1 billion, where everyone in India will be almost covered. When everyone is almost covered, then how we can identify who is going to be, who is that much educated to receive or filter the contents. He also mentioned the positive side, the e-commerce, the online education, the entertainment, although there are negative side also. But these things, one very, very important point which he has mentioned is that we have become very less tolerant. And that is the reason that what we do not want to see, and if it appears in the media, we become very agitated, and we try to do something which again give a conflict. And that's why the media, people blame the media, but it all depends on us as a society, that we should tolerate whatsoever anybody is saying. That is his views, and your views, it might be different, but you should not react nicely. And he has also mentioned that the media is like a nuclear energy. If it is used properly, it can do wonders. If it can be used misused, you know that what can be done. So according to him, media can make and break the society. It all depends how we are taking it. Thank you very much, Mr. Deepak Kaul, for giving your very, very enlightened views. When I will come in the next, definitely I will ask some question to you. Now, my next panelist, whom I would like to invite and introduce, is Dr. Anurag Batra. Dr. Anurag Batra is the chairman and editor-in-chief of Business World. He is also the founder of Exchange for Media. Dr. Anurag Batra is amongst the youngest media moguls of India and a first-generation entrepreneur. He is an early-stage investor in startups and also a mentor to budding entrepreneurs. Dr. Batra is a famous TV show host and a renowned author. Welcome, Dr. Anurag Batra, on our show. Dr. Anurag Batra, you have heard what Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal as well as Mr. Deepak Kaul has mentioned. And now we would like to know your views on, does media serve society? Dr. Anurag Batra, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Goel, for inviting me on this very important issue. Thank you, Professor Mohanlal Agarwal, for your opening comments and the recommendation to invite me onto this panel. And I hope in future, Dr. Goel does listen to your recommendation after today, after listening to me, or maybe doesn't listen to it. Fellow panelists, Dr. Sanjay Nadkarni, Mr. Deepak Kaul, it's good to be here with you. I'm the only media person here. So let me say that what Professor Mohanlal Agarwal said and what Mr. Deepak Kaul said were very real, honest, and a fair commentary on the role of media. I think they were very liberal to media. Let me say that at the outset. I think they were very kind. I'm in the thick of media, and then sometimes I've been the receiving end of media. So I have felt it both as a receiver and as the creator of content. So let me first say that for the purpose of discussion, we're in 2021. If we were talking this in 2005, I think the context would be very different. We all talked about the role of social media. And today, let me, for the purpose of discussion, define media into three parts. First is the traditional media, which is television, print, newspapers, magazine, and the extension of them in digital. Because today, media is not about form. It is about content and it is about audiences. I'm not in the magazine business as business world. I'm in the business of business content, which may be video, audio, text. So that's one. Second is user-generated content. And there are lots of sites where user-generated content is very, very popular. And third is social media, which also has an element of user-generated content. And I'm not talking of fake news because I don't consider that as media. And I want to say upfront that media is at the receiving end of fake news. We do not create fake news. Media does not create it. Individuals created, organizations created, countries created, state of heads created, political parties created, vested interest and vested lobbies created. And the characteristic of fake news is that some part of it is believable. That's how you hang on to it. So having divided media into media owners and generation of content through journalists, user-generated content, and social media. And the word influencers in the last 5 years has entered our lexicon. We have social media influencers who in some cases have as much audiences or more audiences than individuals, whether they're state heads. And what they've done is they've used this direct conversation with their subjects as a way to influence their minds. So is that media? We have to ask ourselves, what is media and what is not media? Anything that has content and that has reach is media. First of all, I want to define that. Anything that has content and anything that has reach to an audience is media. I also want to tell you that the last 20 years, the media business has seen a lot of changes. And I want to say upfront that we live in an advertising-led business model that makes sure that we do give free content or free news to our subscribers, readers, viewers. Till the day we do not move into a consumers paying for content, consumers paying for price, for news, I think we will not see the kind of change that Mr. Goel or Professor Agarwal have talked about, the balance that we need to see in media. I also want to say that for the purpose of discussion, let me also say that, again, Mr. Deepak Goel gave the fantastic example of nuclear energy. Now, nuclear energy can be used for peaceful purposes, and nuclear energy can be used for, war and ravaging. And we've seen that more than 7 decades back. So clearly, media is a double-edged sword. But I would say media is doing its job well in a very difficult circumstances. And let me explain what those difficult circumstances are. One is the fact that there is fragmentation of media. Second, I told you we are an advertising-led business model, and advertising is very dependent on economic sentiment. So really, sometimes we can depend on the vagaries of advertising, and that impacts the way a media owner or a media organization works. Third is the fact that Mr. Goel alluded to the fact that we live in echo chambers. He or Mr. Agarwal didn't use the word echo chambers, which means we want people who believe in the same ideals as us, same philosophies as us, and we then consume the kind of content that perpetuates that thought process. As Mr. Goel and we have grown in an environment where we are used to multiple sources, and I will come to the role of BBC. soon. And BBC is very credible. Let me say that upfront. Just because one or two instances may have happened in a long span of BBC, but BBC is among the most credible media. We also have to see the rise of state-owned media. Today, whether you look at the Russian state, it has RT, because the CNN is seen to be the voice of the American establishment. It is not seen to be the voice of the world. I mean, it's a very credible platform, but it looks at news from the viewpoint of an American, right? So there is the rise of national media. You take French national media, you take South African national media, you take German national media. So clearly, national media owned by the state has also a role to play, or not owned by the state, owned by private players, supported by the state, has a role to play. And last but not the least is what are the improvements that the media can do. So let me start on a lighter vein. I had a friend who unfortunately a couple of months back went to heaven because of COVID. And I remember, he was an industrialist, and sometimes he would be at odds with media. And there was some unfavorable reporting on him, and he would always criticize media. And he would talk to me privately and say, you guys are like this, you guys are like that. So I remember about 10 years back, I went to a blood donation camp where a lot of my media owner friends, my editor friends were there, and they gave their blood. They were donating blood. And I called this friend of mine, and let me call him Mr. Mehra. I don't want to give you his real name, especially now that he is in heaven. And I told Mr. Mehra, I'll say it in Hindi, and for your audiences, then I'll repeat it in English. I told Mr. Mehra, यहाँ पे सब मीडिया वाले हैं, सबका खून हमारे जैसा ही है, लाल है. So Mr. Mehra said to me कि हाँ लाल तो होगा ही, हमारा ही तो पीते. So it's, I'm saying it in jest, and I don't want to. Point is, he would always say to me, the media people are different than others, and the nature of the job may be different, and it needs to be different. But the fact is, I tried to prove to him that the media people are part of the society and come from the society. That's the point I'm trying. I haven't come from Mars, Venus, or the anchors that you see haven't come from Mars, Venus. Of course, the role of media cannot just be a business. It has a social responsibility. It has a purpose. Media needs to do that. And I would say, as I said, that I want to say that media, Professor Mohan Agarwal asked a very pertinent question. He said, the suggestion of the topic itself is rhetorical. Does the society serve the media? And let me give my comments on that. The fact is, are we more tolerant of, as Mr. Goel said, of different viewpoints which may or may not agree with our own viewpoint, our philosophies? And I would say that the media itself has played a role in dividing people. I would say that social media has played a role in propagating propaganda or news or content, which has already divided a very divided world, a very polarized world. And let me give you two examples from recent times. One is the fact that over the last 45 days, there was a strife in Israel. Israel and Palestine conflict again flared up. And again, for a lot of years, seeing the images of Indira Gandhi hugging Yasser Arafat when I was younger, and, reading a certain narrative in Indian media about Israel, I have for many, many years, I saw Israel as a bully. Because that's the kind of narrative I read in media. And I did consume media very early in my life. When I was 8 years old, I would read many newspapers and magazines that my parents would get at home. But over the last decade, I have a more nuanced view on Israel and Palestine. Because I have Israeli friends. I read all sides of the story, and I made a point to research and understand what is the conflict about. And there are two sides of the story. There's no one side. But as a young boy, I saw Israel as a bully. I don't think they may be a decisive country. They may have a viewpoint, but I don't think they're a bully. Right? Second is, recently there was a investigation by the BBC in a certain celebrated journalist interviewing Diana, and did he cook up facts to get that interview, and did that influence the death of Diana? And BBC, I would say, is among the most, in my view, still the most credible voices in the world, most balanced, and follows what it preaches. The problem today with a lot of our uh, you know functions in the society, whether it's the judiciary or it's the media, is that they preach to everyone. They don't necessarily follow what they preach. They want self-regulation, but they don't self-regulate themselves and avoid any external regulation. And I can tell you that I would say that, especially referring to this episode of Diana's interview, again, the fact that BBC put itself through so much scrutiny tells you that there are independent media that do look at themselves in a critical way, and at the end of the day, look at the imperfections they may have there in process or output. Now, I also want to go back. In my view, the three things that media does not do well, and I want to say that first, and I'll come to say how it serves the society. Sometimes media twists facts. I want to give you an example. One day, about 10 years back, a leading English newspaper published on the front page photographs of Justice Gyan Sudha Mishra of the Supreme Court with the caption, "Supreme Court judge says her daughters are liabilities." This was a distorted and fallacious item of news published on the front page. Let me give you a background into this news. Supreme Court judges have to disclose their assets and liabilities. Against the liabilities column, Justice Mishra had written 2 daughters to be married, and what he implied was that in his daughter's marriage, he would have to spend money, so he showed it as a liability. Strictly speaking, it was not necessary to mention this because liabilities mean legal liabilities. For example, housing loan, car loan, etc., etc. Justice Mishra's intention was obviously to say that she would spend on her daughter's future marriage. She has 3 daughters, no son, only one of whom was married at that point. Justice Mishra never said nor intended to say that her daughters were a liability. This news was false and defamatory with the obvious intention of creating a sensation. So media sometimes creates sensation. That's the nature of media. It's like the kind of food, if you put too much spices in it, we might taste it, but it harms our gut. And I have been at the receiving, how a headline, sometimes the headline has no connection with what is inside the content, or very tenuous or weak connection. And a certain kind of premeditated story is done with a disregard to facts. Second is paid news. The most important issue that to be discussed for media and the role of media in society is paid news. The issue of paid news has been prominent of late, I would say in the last 12 to 15 years. And it has become a scandal, especially in terms of elections, in terms of our processes to elect democratic governments. And fake news is the biggest menace we have to deal. And the fact that there is such a powerful social media with sizable audiences amplifies fake news. Today, WhatsApp amplifies fake news. So we have to be very guarding against fake news. And last is making non-real issues real issues, or sometimes doing news on events so as to take the attention of the masses away from real news. And, for example, we don't focus on economic issues which impact livelihoods. In the last 16 months, because of Corona, we have focused on a lot on health, a lot on immunity. That's a good thing. I would say that is a positive fallout. But fact is, we focus a lot on celebrities, fashion. I'm not saying that's not important, but I think we need to focus a lot on the air quality, on environmental issues. So the kind of issues that media highlights also needs to be better. And last but not the least, I would say there is sometimes a tendency to journalize, to be able to, and I want to give you an example. We know that there is a lot of division that is happening on religion, caste, nationality, and a lot of times when there is, let's say, a bomb blast, and a certain kind of organization may be responsible. But to paint, we know that majority of most of any religions are peace-loving, the communities are peace-loving, they're integrated with the nation, they share the democratic principles that we all stand for. But sometimes in the media, the reporting is as if these splinter groups represent the majority of the religion. So I think these are issues media can do much better. Now, let me say what media does well. I think media does very well by highlighting the marginalized people, giving them voice. And dare I say, sometimes a story may break on Twitter or through a social media influencer, but the mainstream media takes up that and kind of highlights that and covers it for many does, gives it credibility, and that brings about change. Whether it's in the issues of environment, whether it's in the issues of social justice, or whether in the critical issues of democracy. And last but not the least, the media brings diverse viewpoints. I would say, in spite of my criticism of media, I would say I understand the polarization of media, how CNN works, how Fox works in India. I would say that most media are balanced. There are some media who clearly identified with the right or the left or a certain political party. The only thing is they don't declare upfront. In the US, Mr. Call, at least we know that Fox is right wing. They have no qualms saying that. We know that CNN is more balanced, in my view, and I watch a lot of CNN. But it is an American viewpoint, and I would say that in America, the journalists do their job of asking tough questions to power. In India, I think we can do that better. And power doesn't just mean politicians; it means bureaucrat, it means business owner, it means police, it means judiciary. Right? I think we can do a better job. So clearly, media is doing a very tough job in a very tough environment, where the business of media and the business model of media has been, over the last 2 decades, structurally weakened by successive governments. Bringing in legislation that is brought in so as to help the citizens, but the deeper agenda is to be able to weaken the business structure of media so that the media is never stable and powerful. And I would say that I believe in one philosophy. I'd say it in Hindi and translate it in English. Jahan Saraswati ka vaas hota hai, wahan Lakshmi to aa hi jati hai. When we chase excellence, which is truth in media, I think commercial success follows. And if you're commercially independent, you can follow truth because you don't have to be dependent. So it is a virtuous cycle. If you chase excellence, you can chase truth because you're financially not dependent on anyone. So these two go hand in hand. To be able to do your job as independent news media, we need to be responsible. We need to be tolerant of other people's views. We need to give space to every viewpoint, as long as it is not against the tenets of humanity and the tenets of the Constitution. I would end by saying that media is a mirror of the society. It reflects what is happening in the society and the aspirations of the society. As I said right up front, media people haven't come from Mars or Venus. Media people do not have other aspirations. But I would say, like I was 7 years back, I was in a media symposium, and the INB minister of the country at that point, 8 years back, was also in the symposium. And he said, the problem with Indian media is that the Indian media has become commercial. And I got to speak after them, and I said, he's also a friend of mine, and I said to him that I agree with you partly, but I want to ask you, which part of our life has not become commercial? Are educational institutes not commercial? Are the religious institutions which are temple not focused on collecting donations? Are the priests who are supposed to be are linked with the gods not become commercial? If you give more donation to the priest, he'll make sure you spend more time with the god. Or in the temple, isn't the judiciary become commercial? Isn't the politicians, for a lot of politicians, it is service mostly, but for a lot of politicians, it's about investing in a certain line of business and getting returns back. So I do not think we can divide media from what is happening in the society. Having said that, media has a higher purpose, needs to have a higher purpose, has to have higher scrutiny, a bigger responsibility, because if media as the fourth estate, as the fourth pillar of the society doesn't do its job, then I think the damage to the society and to the country and to the fabric of the nation will be lost. So media cannot just be another business. Media cannot be just another function. It has a very important role to play. In very tough circumstances, it does play it well, but I think we can do hugely better. And I'm sure, like me, a lot of us are very conscious of that. I would like to rest my case by saying that I'm an optimist. I always stay an optimist. I always believe that tomorrow will be better than today. And I believe that as media tries to reinvent themselves, get the credibility that it has lost in the last decade or so, I think you'll see a new crop of media who will be able to put pressure on mainstream media to be more true to the reason for being for media organization and media platforms. Thank you so much.
Tomorrow will be better than today, says Dr. Anurag Batra. And he has given all the details in very, very clear terms about the media, because he is a media person himself and a very, very honorable person in that way. But what only one point, because the paucity of the time, I will just highlight one point. He says that media is a double-edged sword. How you are going to take it, it all depends on you, whether the society take it in a good way or the bad way. Thank you very much, Dr. Anurag Batra. I would like to now invite my next guest, because the time is short. And the next guest is Dr. Sanjay Nadkarni. Dr. Sanjay Nadkarni is the Director of Innovation and Research at Emirates Academy of Hospitality Management, Dubai. Dr. Sanjay domain interests are in the convergence of space of analytics, digital and sustainability in the service sector. His portfolio comprises academic and applied research, advisory and consultancy assignments for corporate, government and multilateral agencies. His pedagogic practice includes visiting professorships at premier academic institutions in Asia and Europe. He is also a verified Dubai Future Research contributor. The recognition of his work is reflected in the numerous awards and citations of merit as he has received. Mr. Sanjay's focus is on developing and co-creating applied research and pedagogic practices that have tangible impact on industry and society. He is passionate about leveraging Industry 4.0 and democratizing data science to benefit small and micro businesses and enjoy mentoring in digital and social entrepreneurship. Welcome, Dr. Sanjay Nadkarni, on our show. Dr. Nadkarni, you have heard what our earlier panelists have spoken. Now, I would like to give you a chance to speak. Does media serve society? Dr. Anurag Batra, please. Sorry, Dr. Sanjay Nadkarni, please.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Goel, for the kind introduction. And being the last speaker, there's not much to say, so it's perfect. There is a paucity of time. So I'll be kind of brief in echoing the views of my fellow panelists and essentially validating what they have said. The first point I would like to make is media. Is that the right term anymore? A medium is supposed to carry content, presumably, but here increasingly it's driving content. We are the media are influencing and driving opinions. So therefore, the word medium or media in plural, that itself could be a misnomer. The old world adage, press, as being the fourth pillar of democracy, I don't know to what extent it's valid anymore, particularly in the context of new age media. I mean, that's pretty moot. One of the leading newspapers has this tagline, leader guards the reader. And that essentially epitomizes the press being the fourth pillar of democracy. But is that really true in today's context? I'm not just referring to the fake news, but essentially the influence that media houses exert on journalistic freedom. This can be a topic into itself, and perhaps Mr. Anurag will be, he'll have his own views on that. But again, the credibility of a medium or media is it's a relative concept, because essentially media houses pander to the interests of their owners. We did hear views on, if you're commercially strong and stable, you can remain independent. But again, we do pander to our own prejudices. And this is where we have what we call cognitive bias, right? We want to hear what we want to hear. Rest of it we mute away. So every view has a counter view, and news, when mixed with views, this is when we begin to have these sorts of issues. So, I mean, if it's a media house or a private media house that sort of takes up a position or masks a position to forward its own agenda, that's acceptable. But when a government or state-owned media does that, it's called propaganda. So how do we reconcile? Okay, gone are the days when we had sane and sober news readers, the good old days of Doordarshan when there were no other channels. And today we have all this, shrill sensationalism on many channels. I'm not saying all, but many channels, yeah. So therefore, that kind of brings into question the level of content that is being dished out by the media houses. Now, when it comes to technology, of course, we've seen we've had this, the insights on social media, etc. Technology is a facilitator of news dissemination, but it has also been kind of an eroder of the trust in media houses. Because today, you can have deep fake, I mean, you can mask a fake news as true news simply by using technology to create deep fakes. So the role of technology as a good for media, that itself is now under spotlight because of its ability to do that. We've had this, I think it was Mr. Goel who mentioned gave the analogy with the nuclear sort of bomb. And so that's pretty much the case as in today's situation. My domain specialization is in data science. We look at volume, velocity, variety. And this is pretty much true in the case of media. Lots of volume, loads and loads of news and content. The variety, you have all sorts. You have images, videos, print. And what about veracity? Veracity is something which also technology can control. We have seen now applications of blockchain where authenticity is kind of assured through a certain process. Can this not be also applied in the case of media? Yeah. So if news cannot be devoid of views, a verified mechanism for validating the alt truth needs to be put into place to restore the confidence in media. Because today, anyone can be a creator of content. My view versus your view, who's right? We live in an increasingly polarized world. There is basically no room for a gray area. It's either black and white. You're with me or against me. It's this kind of an attitude that has been perpetuated largely by the media. Again, the content that's carried. I mean, we've already heard this discussion about the type of content pandering to all sorts of religious sensitive issues or socially sensitive issues, which again incite people. We have more on astrology than on scientific thinking and temper, which is the need of the day. We compare ourselves to China, but look how their media, it's state-controlled propaganda, yes, but they move the society in a certain direction. Whereas for us, we still, I mean, it's good to have entertainment, as my eminent panelists have said, but it also needs to be nuanced with rationalism. Yeah, and this is what's patently missing. So if the media take upon themselves collectively a responsibility to kind of educate people in the right direction. When I say educate, I don't mean from a propagandistic perspective, but more about bringing forth the benefits of modernity, science, technology, rather than kind of pandering to their divisions. I guess this is something which needs to really happen in order to restore confidence. Yeah, I'm conscious of the time, so it's pretty much what my eminent panelists have said, and I just had to kind of validate and reflect the discussion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sanjay Nathkarni. Thank you for completing your talk in such a short time, but made all the points. Now my question, because Dr. Anurag Batra has to leave, and I do not want that he should go without answering the question. Dr. Anurag Batra, question to you is, do you think because of the money, whether it is by the government or by the advertisers or through the paid news, the credibility of the media has gone down in India?
One, I don't believe in generalizations. Okay, saying that all Punjabis drink single malt. I don't. Okay. I'm almost vegetarian now, so I am against generalization. I won't say that all media has lost its credibility. I would say that some media have definitely lost that credibility. The direct answer to your question is that yes, some of the media have been influenced by their own ideology. The fact that they're dependent on advertising on certain segments has colored their reporting. There's no question about that. I would say in case of some news channels, because we're primarily talking news media, talking news. And I want to tell you, and I will take names. I do a news broadcast conference. With humility, I can say that everybody who matters in Indian media is there. I did that on 3rd of April with everyone. And I remember in 2012 or 13, I'm not sure of the year. So I did invite Riz Khan to speak at my conference. Remember, it was the Oberoi.
Dr. Batra, can you just come closer to the camera?
Yeah, so I invited.
Please. Sorry.
I invited Riz Khan to speak at the conference because I grew up watching him. And I happened to meet him in 2000 accidentally at the, Basant Lok PVR. He was shooting and I was there. And, and I went up to him. I just started exchanging media. And then we stayed in touch and I invited him to come to India to speak at my news conference because I grew up watching him on CNN. And I remember another anchor who I don't want to name, and he's clearly not very still when he's anchoring. So you can imagine whichever anchor it is, very, very animated. I'll leave that to your imagination. He's a gentleman. His name starts with A. So I think I've given you enough quizzing. And both of them in the room, and I was moderating a session with them. And I did ask the question that the old model of media was, as Dr. Nathkarni said, to be able to report, give both the sides. But now media and the journalists and the anchors give their own viewpoint. And clearly, Mr. Riz Khan was of the view that the world has changed, but still there should be a balance. And that's the right way. Whereas this other anchor was saying, no, because we are the custodians of the trust of the viewers and we need to clarify, because there has been so much conditioning over the last 5-6 decades that we need to undo that conditioning. So clearly there is a change context, there is a change aspiration, there are some change beliefs. I think we need to safeguard our credibility with a lot more gusto. And again, dare I say, we are living in very, very, very interesting times, instant news, 24/7 news cycle. So I don't think the retention is that high. In 2 days, 3 days, another news takes over. So clearly, I think news has a very important role. It does help form opinions. It does help make choices, whether it's election or let's take vaccination. You gave the example. Dr. Mohanlal gave the example of Donald Trump. Clearly, he had a certain number of Twitter followers. He was an influencer. He was bigger than some of the media outlets. The fact that he believed climate change was a hoax, he believed that corona will go away and vaccination is not the answer, clearly impacted other people. So I think media reflects the kind of people we have as leaders. And I would say overall in society, at least for now, the leaders are dwarfer.
Okay, thank you very much.
They're not.
Thank you very much, Dr. Batra, for giving your reply. Now my question goes to Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal. There used to be an Hindi proverb, समाज ही साहित्य ही समाज का दर्पण होता है. Is it true now for the media that media is the mirror of the society?
Sir, if you
Thir-
permit
thir-
me,
30 seconds.
Yes,
30 seconds.
can I give my time to? Can I yield my time to Dr. Sanjay, please?
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall I ask this question to Dr. Sanjay Natkar?
Yes, please.
Dr.
Because he was
Natkarni.
very kind. He was very
Okay,
kind.
okay,
in that.
no issues. Dr. Natkarni, समाज ही साहित्य ही समाज का दर्पण होता है was a proverb which we used to read in the very early time. Now, whether the media is the mirror of the society, is it correct or not? If it is correct, then why?
Well, if I have to answer in short, Sahitya, as in literature, is not really media. Media is just a carrier. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Natkarni. My question goes to Mr. Deepak Goel. Do you agree that media should filter the contents and then broadcast or put it on their platform?
As Dr. Sanjay said, that there needs to be a technology. I mean, we don't want policing. We don't want censorship. Okay. But yes, every media house has to establish the veracity of the news that they're going to put on their channel. That's it. They don't have to add their opinion onto that. If they don't do it, then as Dr. Sanjay mentioned, there needs to be a technology through blockchain that whatever comes on the platform gets verified one way or the other, and only the truth reaches the masses. I don't think a censorship is a solution, but people need to use their common sense to filter the information, especially the media leaders, and a technology which does the same on the social platform. I think that will be my brief answer.
Okay. Thank you very much. So today, viewers, you have seen how the media experts, all those who are expert in their field, has spoken about the media's serving the society. And their view are very clear. Media is serving the society. It all depends on us, the civil society, how they perceive it, how they take it. If you want to take it positively, it's upon you. If you don't want to take it, you want to take it negatively, it is again depends on you. So if you cannot kill the messenger only because of your whims or because of your wishes or because your alignment with a particular political or religious party. So one has to be very, very clear that media is serving, media is doing their job. Only thing is, there are some black sheep which happens in every field, but we cannot say that media is not serving the society. Thank you very much. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4NEWS, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon se Samvad Saath Prokar News, Bharat Post News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to bring to you everyday new topic. But for last 1 month, we have started a Hindi program in the evening for half an hour, where we are taking the autobiography of a achiever. And today my guest is in the program called Kal Aaj Aur Kal Lal Goel Ke Sang at 4:30 p.m. The chief guest is Professor Dr. Alok Prakash Mittal, former member secretary, AICTE. He is now the director, NSUT West Campus, New Delhi. So please tune in today at 4:30 p.m. for Kal Aaj Aur Kal Lal Goel Ke Sang. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. Thank you very much, Mr. Deepak Goel. Thank you very much, Dr. Sanjay Natkarni. And thank you very much, Dr. Anurag Batra, for giving your very, very thoughtful, expert opinions on this very hot topic. And I'm sure our viewers got the views very clearly. And now it all depends on the viewers, how you want to take the views of their in positive way or negative way. Thank you very much.